Hey there, Internet. It's been a while. Well, except for those of you who have me on Tumblr, and those of you who have me on Facebook and Formspring. So for YouTube, it's been a while, but I don't, I was gonna say I'm busy, but I'm not. I'm lazy. But today, I'm actually doing a movie review of Begotten, 1990 by Elias. Murridge, I think is how you pronounce it. He did Shadow of the Vampire in 2000, and I saw that one and I thought it was pretty good. It's got Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich in it, and a number of other fairly decent actors. But what I'm talking about is his debut film, 1991, I think it was released, Begotten, and I had heard a lot about this movie over the course of the years, and I had seen lots of still frames and GIFs on Tumblr, kind of dedicated to it, and it looked, really, it looked really good. I mean, it had some really scary imagery, and that's one thing that this movie has going for it, is it does have some scary imagery, but only as kind of a still frame, or maybe as like a short clip, because it kind of lets the mind's own terrified curiosity do its own thing and just go against itself, which is what your horror movie is really supposed to do. But when I saw this movie, I watched it last night, and I've watched it again this morning as kind of a refresher, and I've got some notes on my computer here. The thing about this movie is it doesn't really have the air of a horror movie. It has more the air of a symbolic experimental film. And if anything, that's the first thing I noticed about it, is that the symbolism is fucking impenetrable. The first time I watched it, I kind of figured, maybe it'd be... when I saw the release date, then I saw the film camera quality, the 9mm or whatever it is, I kind of figured, oh, well... And then they did the reshooting, or whatever the hell it's called. I figured, well, this is probably going to be pretty heavy on the symbolism, so I tried to, and when I watch movies, typically I do that anyway, so I had a notepad out, tried to figure out what the story, there was like an underlying kind of plot that was also hinted at through this visual symbolism, any audio symbolism, and it was like, what is going on? I mean, look at me, you'd think I'd be pretty good at that. So it wasn't until the second time around, after I looked up the synopsis on IMDb, that I saw the story for what it was, and I was like, well, the story I can get behind. The story that the symbolism touts touts, if that's even right, is actually pretty good. I mean, I liked it. The whole God disemboweling himself, giving birth to Mother Earth, and then Mother Earth just gives birth to the son, and then just kind of leaves him for dead to the cannibals, and then they tear him apart, and then rape the Earth. I liked that. I thought it was, I couldn't tell if the son of Earth was supposed to be humanity, or if the cannibals were supposed to be humanity, or maybe certain parts of humanity. Maybe that the son of Earth was supposed to be human innocence or natural innocence or something like that. But so the story was good, but the problem is, and it's a fatal mistake that's made in filmmaking, and it's made all the time, more often than you'd think, is having symbolism in a movie and making it impossible to decipher. And now the obvious, the white to the black, the yin to the yang, is making symbolism that's really, really obvious. It's all gonna be subtle. And this is about as subtle as a fucking gnat on a black wall from 50 yards away. Like, you can't pick it up. I don't know how I think maybe the synopsis was written, must be written by somebody who was working on the movie, because I don't see how anybody, unless they did this for a living, which I don't. I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm not going to pretend I'm some expert at this, but the other problem that I had with this, and I kind of brushed over it earlier, was that I've often heard it said that it's an underground horror legend, and if anything, it only has disturbing imagery. I didn't really get the feeling that it was a horror movie. Maybe it's just me being desensitized because I've been watching horror movies my whole life, and I've enjoyed them my whole life. But I just really didn't feel like it was a horror movie, because a horror movie implies that you have something to be afraid of, and whether it's your own mind, whether it's something in the story, an element of the story, and I didn't get any of that. If we're supposed to be afraid of our own human foibles and human quips, then I can understand that, but it would make sense if you could pick up on it. It would be scary if you could pick up on it. It's kind of like, wow, humans really suck. But it's just completely transparent. You can't, or it's not transparent. You can't see through the visuals that are on the screen. And so that doesn't make it a horror movie. That makes it, to me, kind of an indie experimental movie. And to that degree, it definitely failed as a movie. The biggest thing about it was how disappointed I was. When I talked to people about it before I watched it, I made sure they didn't give anything away for me. They made it sound like it was some kind of well, it is graphic. It's very. I mean, there's a rape scene in it. Earth gives a dying god a blowjob. Like it's and there's a lot of he disembowels himself with a straight razor. I mean, it's very graphic imagery. But it's more just like a gore exploitation movie with a pretentious symbolic twist, and it just doesn't work. It has worked in certain movies, but it just doesn't work with this one because it wasn't done right. That's not to say that this director has failed as a director, because this was his debut movie. I don't know what else he's made besides Shadow of the Vampire. I really liked Shadow of the Vampire, if not just for how much I like the original Nosferatu. It's kind of like there's kind of a fictional story behind the making of the movie. I thought that was cool. Willem Dafoe and John Malkovich, of course, were awesome, as they always are, especially Willem Dafoe. I've always been a huge fan of Willem Dafoe. Shadow of the Vampire I really liked, but this debut movie of Elias just wasn't good. It didn't live up to the standards that people had given it. Kind of subconsciously given this movie. I wasn't very pleased with it. If anything, the other thing I noticed about it, and I just about forgot, I was about to wrap up the video, but I missed out on one thing that I just glanced at my computer and saw, was how boring it is. It's mostly due to the cinematography, I think, because I've seen a lot of I've seen Eraserhead, and Eraserhead was, it was alright. At least with Eraserhead, there were certain elements of the story you could pick up on, and the cinematography was pretty good, I thought, as a person who kind of, gets a hard-on for really good cinematography and visual symbolism and that kind of thing, and it holds on to shots for way too long. And again, debut movie, I understand you make mistakes, but some of these are just you almost wonder if if he knew at the time anything about filmmaking. Because like I said, Shadow of the Vampire, year 2000, awesome movie. I love that movie. This movie, I just I don't know. It was just boring as all. I couldn't stop looking at the time on my watch. I was just, come on, let's get this going. See if some kind of plot is gonna come out of this, and they're just nothing really happened until you really realize what's going on. This movie isn't gonna do anything for you, and even then, you'll be so disappointed with the first time you watch it. It's just gonna be a crapshoot at that point. So, internet, that's my review of Begotten. It's my opinion. If you disagree, we can have a chat about it. I don't have a degree in film, but I've watched movies all my life, and I've been very critical of movies all my life. It's something that I enjoy doing. So if you want to have a friendly discussion about it, we can. So, see you later.